Hello everyone, welcome to the solution of LeetCode problem 2610 named convert an array into a two-dimensional array with conditions. In this problem, we are given an array of integers. Now, we need to create a two-dimensional array by using the original array, which satisfies the following condition. Here, the two-dimensional array should contain only the elements of the given input array, and each row in the two-dimensional array contains distinct integers. The following number of rows in the two-dimensional array should be minimal. Now we have to return the resulting array. If there are multiple answers, we can return any of them. Note that the two-dimensional array can have a different number of elements on each row. Suppose in the first example, the array contains element 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 1. Now suppose if we create three two-dimensional array, then 1, 3, 4, 2, 1, 3, and 1. Here, all elements of the input array are used, and each row of the two-dimensional array contains distinct integer because any of this row does not have the duplicate element. So it is a valid answer. So it can be shown that we cannot have less than 3 rows in a valid array. So here for this problem, we have to return this 3 list. Now for this example 2, the array is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So all elements of the array are distinct. So we can keep all of them in the first row of the two-dimensional array. So here we can return the given input as it is. Now the constraint are, the array length can be in between 1 to 200, and each of the array element can be in between 1 to the array length. I hope you understood the problem statement. Now let's move on to the algorithm. Now to solve this problem, we have taken the first example. Here the array is 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 1. Now suppose if we make the array 1, 2, 3, 4 using these 4 elements, then make another array with the element of 1 and 3 by using these 2 elements, and make another element of 1. Suppose if we make these 3 lists, then we can say that these 3 lists does not have any other repetitive element for each of the list, and it is the minimum possible two-dimensional array. So here for this input, we have to return this 3 list. Now the problem is, how can we build this list according to the conditions? So here at first, let's try to understand the intuition. In any kind of problem, suppose in this kind of problem, we have to deal with the frequency. Now suppose let us take a map. Here we will store the frequency of each element on the input array. Suppose in our current map, the frequency of 1 is 3, which is this, and this. The frequency of 2 is 1, which is this. The frequency of 3 is 2, which is this and this. And the frequency of 4, which is 1, which is this. Now, let's try to understand what is the minimum number of one-dimensional array can we make. Here, the minimum number of one-dimensional array we can make is 3. Why 3? Because let's suppose we have 3 arrays. Now we have 3 1 in our input array, right? So we can put 1 1 here, another 1 here, and another 1 here. So there are at least 3 lists that is necessary to distribute all of the 1 into the separate list. So now we have understood what is the minimum number of lists we need to make by using the input array, which is the maximum of all of the key value pair. In this case, it is the value 3. That means here we have to make at least 3 lists. So now one portion is the problem is solved. That means we know how many one-dimensional lists can we have. Now the challenge is how can we build this one-dimensional array. So here the intuition is very simple. We have to run a loop from this entire map 3 times. Suppose each of the time we will iterate each of the element from top to bottom, and we will check whether the current element frequency is greater than 0 or not. Suppose in the first iteration, we can see that in the first entry 1 and 3, the frequency of 1 is 3, which is greater than 0. So we have to add the key of the corresponding frequency, which is 1 in the list. Now, after adding, we have to decrease the value of 3 into the value of 2 because we have already used one instance of 1 here. Now for this element 2, we have to check whether the value is greater than 0 or not. Yes, the value is 1, it is greater than 0. That means we can use another 2 here. After using 2, we can make this 1 0. That means there is nothing left for this element 2. Now for this element 3, the value which is 2, this is definitely greater than 0. That means we can use one instance of the 3 into the first list. So after using this instance or this instance, we should decrease the frequency of 3 from 2 to 1. Now for this element 4, the value is 1, which is greater than 0. So we can use one instance of 4 into the first list. Now we should make the frequency of 4 from 1 to 0. Now one list is made. So now we have to run another loop because we have to run 3 loops. In the second loop, this is for the second list. We have seen that the frequency of 1 is 2, which is definitely greater than 0. So here we are using another instance of 1 here. Now the frequency of 2 and 4 is 0. So we cannot use 2 and 4. But the frequency of 3 is 1. So we can use one instance of 3 here. After using one instance of 3, the frequency of 3 will become 0. Now, the second iteration is completed. Now we have to perform the third iteration. But before that, as we have used one instance of 1 here, we have to decrease the value of the frequency 1 from 2 to 1. Now, for this third instance or the third array, we can see that none of the value is greater than 0 except for this value 1. So here we should use 1 here as a list. So finally, after completing 3 of the iterations, we have found 3 of the list from this corresponding map. So these 3 lists can be used to make a 2-dimensional array, and finally we will return the answer. I hope you understood the algorithm. Now let's move on to the code. In this problem, the code is pretty simple. At first, we are given an input array. Now we are using one map and one maximum value. The maximum value will store the maximum number of iterations we have to make over the map. So in this for loop, we are increasing the frequency of each of the character, and we are calculating the value of the maximum. Now we have to run a loop from 0 to the maximum, and inside each for loop we have to run another nested loop here. Now here we have to take a temporary vector. Now we have to run a loop from each of the entries in the map. And if any of the entries, the frequency is greater than 0, in those kind of cases, we have to add the corresponding key to the temporary vector, and we have to decrease the frequency by 1. And finally, the inner loop get completed. We have to simply append the temporary vector to the two-dimensional answer vector. Finally, we have to return the answer. I hope you understood the code. Now let's move on to the time and space complexity analysis of this program. In this program, the time complexity is big O of n because we are iterating each of the element in the input array, and the space complexity is also big O of n because we are using extra memories to solve this problem. Thank you everyone for watching this video. We will get back soon with another LeetCode solution.